One of the things I often see on like Reddit or like other movie forums, really Reddit, that's what I use, is I'll see people say something like, I just watched insert classic movie here and I didn't like it. What am I missing? How did I not get out of this movie what everyone else seems to get out of that movie? And I always kind of want to say like that happens all the time to me, I feel like. Film is inherently subjective, so of course there's gonna be movies that work for some people and work for a lot of people, but I am just not one of those people, right? We have different sensibilities. At the end of the day, it's an art form designed to make you feel something. It can't make every single person feel the way it wants to. So, I thought it could be a fun idea to make a video talking about some movies that other people love that I'm just not quite as into. Just to be clear, I am not saying I think these movies are overrated or people are wrong for loving these movies. If anyone's wrong, it's probably me. They're just films that for whatever reason didn't work for me, but I think for all these I can understand why they worked on other people. A couple I'm a little bit confused about, but I'm sure it's just because I don't get it, and not because other people are stupid. If you like a movie, you like a movie. So, yeah, long preamble over. Let's get into the list. These are 7 movies that I was not as crazy about, but other people were. First, we can start off with Blue Velvet, which is the David Lynch movie, and I love David Lynch. I'm a big David Lynch fan. There's a lot of David Lynch movies I really enjoy. In fact, he has 2 movies that are on my top movies of all time list that I have on my Letterboxd, which, by the way, follow me on Letterboxd. Jackson Kruger is the name. But, yeah, I mean, a big David Lynch fan. Really enjoy his stuff. This one just didn't fully hit for me. I think my biggest issue with this is that it does get very weird and Lynchian at a certain point. It doesn't start off that way, and I almost wonder if it just felt a bit too jarring, where I just wasn't. This was one of my first Lynch movies I saw. It can be said of all these movies that perhaps on a rewatch I will enjoy it more, but still on my first watch at least, I don't think I think I was still I wasn't fully invested in the story. The story didn't really make a lot of sense to me, and since it was still a pretty plot heavy film, I kind of was more, I guess, like laughing at the Dennis Hopper character, and not in a good way. Not even really laughing. I just kind of found it, like, I guess, cringy for me, which I know is not most people's opinion. Most people find that performance hilarious in a good way and also terrifying in a good way, kind of that blend. I did not find it terrifying at all. That was just my experience with it. I like what it's going for. The whole idea of, like, even the small town, nice small town area can have this deep underbelly where there's the cockroaches in the grass, right? I get all that. Or I think Beetles in the Grass is what it was. I get all that. I think that's super cool. Big David Lynch fan. This one just didn't hit for me. Next up is Annihilation. This was a movie that came out not too long ago and didn't, if I remember correctly, didn't do great at the box office, but was a real critical success. And the people that did see it seemed to really enjoy it. This is an Alex Garland movie who I would say I'm a fan of Alex Garland, especially, as a writer. Sunshine is one of my favorite movies. Maybe not one of my favorite movies, but it's up there. It's like a 10 out of 10. I give it a 10 out of 10 grade on Letterboxd. So, big fan of the movie. And he's made some other stuff that I've really enjoyed. Ex Machina is another one that he directed that one. Big fan of that one as well. Annihilation, just again, I like a lot of the ideas behind it, and I think it's a cool concept. But for me personally, when I watch a movie, the main thing I care about is characters. And these characters just really did not feel very full of life at all, in my opinion. In fact, I thought a lot of the dialogue felt very stilted. It just wasn't a movie. Again, wasn't a movie that hit for me for whatever reason. I get why people like it. Like, the concept is really cool. The idea is really cool. This is, again, totally subjective, as is this entire video. I wasn't crazy about the overall look of this film. I know it was supposed to look kind of eerie and off, but it just kind of felt to me like you just, you color graded it that way to look eerie and off. It didn't really make me feel as though they were in a world where it was that way. Again, totally subjective, but that's how I viewed it. It was weird. When I gave this kind of a lower tier grade on an Alex Garland tier list, there was a comment that was like, clearly you just didn't watch this movie, or like you didn't pay attention or something like that. I paid attention. Listen, like I said, movies are subjective. We're going to have different opinions. This one, like all of them, maybe if I rewatch it, I'll enjoy it more, but just didn't hit for me. The characters didn't connect with me. It was a cool story, cool plot, but that's kind of all it really had going for me. Next up is Escape from New York, which is a movie I saw for the first time not too long ago, actually. It's one that, like, again, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. None of these movies are movies that I would say didn't work at all for me. These are all movies that I still got some enjoyment out of. This one, no exception. The score is fantastic. Kurt Russell is fantastic. But again, character was very one note, which is kind of by design, right? That's what it's trying to do to some degree. I love the setup and I love the concept, and I just wasn't crazy about some of the payoffs. Some of it was cool, but like I just felt like a lot of the action scenes were this cool setup, and then he just like jumps out a window and is fine, or something like that. Like I felt like the conclusion to a lot of these action scenes just didn't really hit for me. And in fact, and just in general, the character itself, like I said, very one note. I care about character, and this character didn't connect with me, so there's not going to be so much that I can really latch on to. So, yeah, unfortunately, despite the fact that it is easily the greatest plot idea of all time, it is fantastic, and, I would still say I'm glad I watched it, and I still listen to the score sometimes when I'm doing my writing. I'll put that in. It's great music that way, but, yeah, as a whole, it's, I would consider it a movie that just not my thing, is how I would describe it. Number 4 on this list is Top Gun Maverick, which is a film that I'll start off by saying I think the final act was fantastic. I think that was perfect, and I get why people liked it, because that final act was really good. The action scenes when they're in the jets, all that stuff is great, but even the other stuff in that final act I think was great. The reason why this movie didn't fully connect with me personally is like, for an action movie, I do usually need more than just action, and this film didn't really give me that at all. In fact, every single time they weren't in the jets for the first hour, I was wanting them to be in the jets. So, like, I just wasn't that into the back and forth, the dialogue, all of the character stuff just didn't really work for me at all. I also just wasn't crazy about how this film was shot. When it was in the jets, all that stuff was great, but like just the regular, actual scenes, the dialogue scenes, and the things of that nature, it was just all, such shallow focus. It essentially looked like they were almost like just standing in front of a green screen, even though I know they weren't. Like, it was just so blurred out in the background. Again, I have to keep saying it, total personal preference, but it wasn't a movie that I think. The reason why people love this movie, I also enjoyed those reasons. It's just there were some other things that I felt like I had to get through. So again, not a bad movie, just not one that... This was a lot of people's favorite movie of the year. It was nowhere near that for me. Next up, Logan. Let's get to some real hot takes here. So I'm just not a superhero guy. Like, I'm just not. It's not a genre I enjoy, and despite saying that, I constantly get recommended superhero movies. I feel like for whatever reason, if you say you're not a horror guy, people say, okay, got it, no horror, understood. And maybe I'll recommend you like a not scary horror, but like that's it. I'm not going to recommend you Hereditary because of how good it is, right? For whatever reason, superhero, I feel like there's a subsect of superhero fans that can't seem to understand that and constantly still like to recommend me superhero stuff, which is, okay, fine. At the end of the day, I'll still appreciate a recommendation. In fact, just thinking about it, I actually got someone recommended the show The Penguin on this channel, which I have no issue with that. That's a total fine recommendation. I think people are saying it's not really superhero-y as much, but anyway, I say all that to say Logan was the movie that people kept saying, well, this one you'll like. This is the superhero movie that will be good. And I watch it, and it's just another superhero movie. For me, it's a well-made one. I totally get why, if you're a fan of the genre, it's something that you would enjoy. But again, for me, it just... Every scene starts, and I feel like I know where the scene is going. Like, there's the scene I remember is there's a scene when the little girl walks into the gas station, and she just goes and she like opens up like I think it's a soda or something, and then grabs a bag of chips and open that up, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm instantly like, here's what's gonna happen. The person who works there is gonna walk up and gonna say, you got to pay for that, right? And then she's gonna freak out and she's gonna make a scene, and then Wolverine's gonna have to come in and break it up, and then now that's the conflict. And that's exactly what happened. That's one example, but like, I just felt like I kind of knew in the first 30 seconds of each scene where it was going to end up. Which I'm not trying to say like, oh, it's because I know so much more than everybody else. It's just, I happened to, I think, be on to the movie, I guess. I don't know. It was just not a movie that, again, I think the reason you watch it is not for that scene. It's for the action scenes and things of that nature, and for the character. like I said, I'm not super into like superhero stuff, so I haven't seen every X-Men movie, right? So I don't know all of the lore, and maybe if I did, I would care about Logan more, and maybe that's what I was missing. That's totally probably part of it. And again, like with Top Gun Maverick, I'll mention this as well, the action scenes were very good. I totally get why, if you're just there for the action sequences, why you would enjoy this movie. But to me, it is just another superhero movie. A good one, but still just another superhero movie. And let's stick with superhero, why don't we, and go with another hot take, The Dark Knight, which is, I want to be clear, this one's probably my favorite movie on this list. In fact, I think I even have it on Blu-ray somewhere. So it's not a movie that I dislike or anything like that. As a kid, I really enjoyed it. As an adult, I think it's a solid movie with, again, some really fascinating story beats. I think you have, Heath Ledger at the height of his powers being fantastic. And I think you have maybe some muddy scenes you have to kind of just get throughout this movie as well, especially early on. There's the whole like China subplot that happens relatively early on. It's a film that I don't think is I don't think is a masterpiece the way other people do, the way it works for them. I think I view this as like a good time at the movies. Other people view this as like one of the best movies ever made, which is cool. Like, I'm probably wrong about it, right? If you think it's that movie, I'm not trying to change your mind on it. Again, it does kind of come back to character to some degree. The Batman character, I think probably works the best in this movie, but the way I'll hear some people describe this film, like, oh, it's about the psychological decisions of, Batman, and they'll kind of really get into these interesting psychological topics that when I watch, I'm not even thinking about at all. It's just not something that registers for me. For whatever reason, my brain does not go there when watching the movie, when other people's brains do go there when watching the movie. So, I don't know. I've seen it enough times. It's not that I'm missing something, but maybe it just, for whatever reason, it doesn't pique my interest the way it does for other people. Again, there's some great stuff in there. It's a very good movie. It's just not my personal favorite movie, and to be honest, the Batman movie was probably never going to be my personal favorite movie. It's just we have different sensibilities, which is what this whole video is about. And then finally, I'm going to go with, this isn't a movie, it's filmmaker Paul Thomas Anderson, who I'm just going to kind of talk about him in general, because he's someone who I just feel like I don't tend to get it as much as other people tend to get it when it comes to PTA. He's not someone who I am as into. I do he's probably the number one person I get recommended to do a tier list on at this point, now that I've done Stanley Kubrick. Maybe one day it'll happen, but like, I'm just not as into his movies as other people are. There are some movies I really enjoy of his. Punch Drunk Love is probably my favorite. Although even in that movie, I never really understood the love story part of it. Like, I never really got why she was into him. I get why he was into her. I don't get why she was into him, I guess. And I never really did. So there's that. But also the newer stuff, I just kind of feel like, I don't know, I want more of a plot there, I guess. It's kind of just feels like scenes happening, and I don't get it. This is one that I think for everything else, I probably have a more rational, logical explanation, at least in my head, for why I didn't enjoy the movies as much as other people did. For PTA, it's totally a me thing. I don't get it. I don't understand what people like about it. So let me know in the comments, what am I missing? Because for me, I often feel like amazing characters, amazing performances, but not a lot else, and I don't tend to feel too much. I like The Master. I think that one was a good one, but as a whole, like, it's just not something. His films tend to not be for me as much. So I don't know. I'm sure I'm missing something. So let me know what that is. I'm sure if you made it to the end of this video, you have plenty to say about it. So feel free to let me know what you agree with and what you disagree with in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.